Anxiety affects over 300 million people globally.
And looking at the biology, just breathe can actually be terrible advice in that specific moment. There is a statistic that, well, it absolutely stopped me in my tracks recently. Up to 80% of emergency room visits for chest pain show absolutely no cardiac issue after a full medical evaluation.
Wow, 80%.
Right, 80%.
Mm-hmm.
And the patients sitting in those ER beds, they all report the exact same thing. They say, I thought I was dying. And they didn't mean it metaphorically. They genuinely believed their lives were ending right then and there.
Yeah, and the part that completely shifts how we understand those moments is that the emergency wasn't happening in their cardiovascular system at all. I mean, their hearts were perfectly fine.
It's just wild to think about.
It really is. The entire catastrophic event was just, playing out in their nervous systems.
Welcome to the Living Better podcast. I'm Ethan.
And I'm Kate.
We want to take a quick second to warmly greet and thank our incredible community. Your continued support is what makes all of this possible, so if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel so you never miss an episode. Because as we always say around here,
living longer is a science. Living better is a choice.
Today's episode is, well, it's the ultimate example of that choice. We are pulling from some incredibly comprehensive notes on how to manage anxiety naturally. And let me be crystal clear right out of the gate. Our mission today is not just to sit back and intellectually understand anxiety.
Right, because just understanding it doesn't always stop it.
Exactly. We're going to learn how to interrupt it biologically. We are talking about the actual hardware of your body. And as always, a quick reminder that this episode is for educational purposes, not medical advice.
Yeah, that's an important distinction because for decades we've treated anxiety almost exclusively as a psychological problem. We frame it as having too many thoughts or, a character flaw or just an inability to calm down.
Like you just need to relax.
Right, which never works. To actually manage it, we have to look at the biology. I mean, anxiety affects over 300 million people globally. Nearly 1 in 3 people will experience an anxiety disorder in their lifetime.
That is a massive portion of the population.
Exactly. So it is a universal human hardware feature, not a bug.
But if it's a feature, we really have to ask why it evolved in the first place. Because feeling like you're having a massive heart attack while you're just, sitting in traffic does not seem like an evolutionary advantage. It feels like a massive glitch.
It totally feels like a glitch today. But let's look at the environment where our nervous system was actually built. Evolution heavily rewarded false alarms.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, picture early humans walking through a dense jungle. They hear a sudden rustling in the bushes. The humans who instantly assumed that is a tiger and ran away, they survived.
Even if it wasn't a tiger.
Right. The humans who stopped to rationally evaluate the situation and thought, it's probably just the wind, those are the ones who occasionally got eaten.
Yeah, that makes sense. Missing a real threat is fatal.
Exactly. But a false alarm, that just costs you a burst of adrenaline and a few calories. Your brain is not optimized for your happiness or your calm. It is ruthlessly optimized to keep you alive.
So it's operating on this incredibly outdated operating system. And the sources point out something that completely shatters our normal view of the brain. We usually think of the brain like a camera, right?
Just passively recording.
Exactly, just passively recording reality and then reacting to whatever steps into the frame. But the reality is something called predictive processing. The brain acts a lot more like a Netflix recommendation algorithm.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, it doesn't wait for danger. It constantly predicts what's about to happen based on your past history. And it preloads the physical response before the event even occurs.
And that predictive nature explains why anxiety feels so overwhelmingly physical, and why the thoughts are often the very last thing to arrive. The body moves first.
It's acting before you even know why.
Yes. When your brain predicts danger, even if that danger is just a cryptic email from your boss saying we need to talk, it floods your system with adrenaline. Your heart rate accelerates, your breathing becomes shallow, and your blood sugar spikes to give your large muscle groups the energy to physically sprint away.
But you're just sitting at a desk.
Exactly. You are reacting to abstract, modern social threats using ancient survival hardware meant for escaping predators.
So we're sitting totally safe in a brightly lit office, but our internal biology is screaming that we're being hunted. Which brings up a really critical question for me.
What's that?
If our biology is simply trying to protect us from outside threats, why do people with chronic anxiety suddenly become so terrified of completely normal physical sensations inside their own bodies?
That is the core of it. To understand that internal shift, we have to look at how the brain's security system actually functions. Think of the amygdala as a highly sensitive smoke detector.
Oh, yeah.
Its primary job isn't to evaluate nuance, its job is speed. It reacts to the mere possibility of danger. Then you have the prefrontal cortex. This is the human who walks into the kitchen, sees that the toaster is just burning a bagel, and waves a dish towel to clear the smoke.
So the prefrontal cortex is the logic.
Right. It provides context to tell the smoke detector to stand down.
But when someone is under chronic stress or, they're sleep deprived, that prefrontal cortex essentially goes offline. The human leads the kitchen, and the smoke detector is just left blaring at every little puff of dust.
Yes, and that blaring alarm targets a fascinating hidden sense we all have called interoception. We learn about the 5 outward senses in school, but interoception is your brain's ability to sense what is happening inside your physical body.
Like feeling your own heartbeat.
Exactly, your heartbeat, your digestion, your lungs expanding.
Meaning, for someone dealing with an anxiety disorder, the threat isn't the outside world anymore. They have become genuinely terrified of their own biological functions.
It creates a vicious, self-feeding biological cycle that we call the anxiety loop. Let's walk through how it actually happens in real time. It usually starts with a completely benign physical sensation.
Like just standing up too fast.
Perfect example. You stand up and your heart beats a little faster to adjust your blood pressure. The brain, whose smoke detector is already hypervigilant, zeroes in on that interoceptive signal and misinterprets it.
It thinks, why is my heart racing?
Exactly. It thinks we must be in danger because it perceives a threat. It dumps stress hormones into your bloodstream. That makes your heart beat even faster.
Oh, wow.
And then the brain monitors that escalating heartbeat and uses it as confirmation. Look how fast the heart is beating. I was right. We are in a life or death situation.
You are literally triggering a panic response from the inside out. The brain scares the body reacts, and the body's reaction terrifies the brain.
It's a complete loop.
And when you're trapped in the middle of that loop, it feels entirely out of your control. So how do we actually biologically interrupt this in real time?
The fundamental rule of real-time interruption is a bit counterintuitive. You cannot fight the wave. You have to ride it.
Ride the wave. Yeah.
When the amygdala dumps that initial hit of adrenaline into your system, the peak of that neurochemical activation only lasts about 60 to 90 seconds.
Wait, really? Just 90 seconds?
That's it. It is a biological wave that has to crest and break. If you try to fight it or suppress it or tell yourself, oh God, stop panicking, you are just signaling to the brain that there really is a threat, which just generates a secondary wave of adrenaline.
But 90 seconds sounds impossibly short.
Yeah.
Anyone who has had a panic attack will tell you it feels like it lasts for hours. Are we sure the hardware resets that quickly?
The initial chemical dump peaks in 90 seconds. The reason it feels like it lasts for hours is that we keep re-triggering new adrenaline dumps by how we react to the first one.
Oh, I see. We're keeping the loop alive.
Exactly. So to stop the re-triggering, you use the 90-second observation protocol. You stop moving, sit or stand still, and completely drop the narrative in your head. Do not analyze why you are anxious.
There's no trying to figure it out.
No. Instead, you name 3 purely physical sensations out loud or in your head. Like, my chest is tight, my palms are sweating, my stomach is dropping.
That's sticking to the raw data.
Yes. And then you follow it with a vital biological reminder. You tell yourself this is activation and not danger. You are actively breaking the neural association that physical discomfort automatically equals a threat to your life.
That is so powerful. And I really want to emphasize what the sources explicitly tell us not to do during this window. They call it the action shift rule.
This is huge.
Yeah, when that anxiety spike hits, there are three things you are absolutely forbidden from doing for 10 full minutes. You cannot pull out your phone and Google your physical symptoms. You cannot turn to the person next to you and ask, do I look okay?
Yeah.
And you cannot sit there trying to mentally solve the anxiety.
Because all three of those behaviors are forms of internal monitoring. The more you focus inward to check if you are still anxious, the more you feed the loop. The action shift rule forces your attention outward while the prefrontal cortex comes back online. You have to engage in a physical, sensory task. Go wash the dishes, organize a single drawer, or literally step outside and look at the physical environment. You're forcing the brain to process external data rather than spiraling on interoceptive data.
I have to challenge a piece of classic advice here.
Yeah.
Because when you are in the middle of that spiral
Yeah.
and someone well-meaning puts their hand on your shoulder and says, just take a deep breath,
Oh, yeah.
there is almost nothing more infuriating. It feels so dismissive. And looking at the biology, just breathe can actually be terrible advice in that specific moment.
It is incredibly frustrating, and the biological mechanism behind why it fails is just fascinating. When people feel a panic attack coming on, they often feel like they can't get enough air, so they start taking fast, shallow, forced breaths.
They start hyperventilating.
Right, and this rapid breathing actually blows off too much carbon dioxide. When your CO2 levels drop too low, it causes your blood vessels to constrict.
Which does what?
Well, that constriction leads to dizziness, tingling in your extremities, and a terrifying tightness in your chest.
Which are the exact symptoms of a heart attack.
Exactly.
So trying to take deep breaths actually physically mimics the exact medical emergency they are terrified of having.
Precisely. You are pouring gasoline on the fire. So instead of focusing on deep breathing, the biological alternative is the 3 to 5 minute reset walk.
Okay, how does that work?
You walk at a normal, moderate pace. You let your exhales be naturally just a bit longer than your inhales. Don't force them, just let them release slowly. And crucially, you keep your eyes moving laterally across your environment. Do not stare down at your phone or at your feet.
Let's unpack that lateral eye movement, because that sounds like magic, but it's actually pure neurobiology, isn't it?
It is. When you move your eyes side to side, you are mimicking the visual scanning our ancestors did when they were surveying a safe landscape. That lateral movement of the optic nerve sends a physical signal to the vagus nerve.
The vagus nerve, which is like the calming center.
Basically, yeah, it's essentially the biological brake pedal connected to your gut and your heart. When you scan a horizon, you are manually pressing that brake pedal. You're physically communicating to your nervous system that the environment is clear of predators.
Okay, so the 90-second protocol and the reset walk give us the tools to survive the wave when it crashes. But how do we stop the smoke detector from being so wildly sensitive in the first place?
We have to look at the hardware.
Right. To borrow an analogy, trying to fix chronic anxiety purely with mindset shifts or therapy, it's kind of like trying to run the latest, most demanding software on an old smartphone with a failing battery. The software isn't necessarily the problem. The hardware just doesn't have the power to run it.
That's a great analogy. Your brain is constantly evaluating the physical resources of your body to determine your baseline level of safety, and sleep is the foundational resource.
Sleep is a battery.
Exactly. Neuroscience shows that a lack of sleep literally hypertrophies the amygdala's response. It turns the emotional volume knob all the way up. Without adequate sleep, your brain assumes you are biologically vulnerable. So it flags minor inconveniences like a delayed train or a misplaced key as massive threats.
And if poor sleep is the failing battery, the metabolic trap is like the malware. The notes outline a specific combination that basically brews a panic potion in your bloodstream. It's low blood sugar combined with caffeine combined with daily stress.
Let's isolate the caffeine component because caffeine itself isn't inherently bad. It works by blocking adenosine receptors, which prevents you from feeling sleepy.
Right.
But for a nervous system that is already on edge, that chemical stimulation is easily misinterpreted. The brain notices the slightly elevated heart rate and the physical jitteriness from the coffee, and the smoke detector goes off. It thinks, wait, why is my heart racing? We must be under attack.
And then you add low blood sugar to that.
Right, which causes the body to release adrenaline just to mobilize stored glucose. So your internal environment perfectly mimics the exact physiology of a panic attack.
So the hardware maintenance is pretty straightforward. You delay your morning caffeine until you've been awake for at least 90 minutes. And make sure you put protein in your system first to stabilize the blood sugar and prevent that adrenaline spike.
Simple, but highly effective.
But let's look at exercise. We always hear the generic advice that, oh, exercise is good for mental health. But biologically, it seems like exercise is actually the ultimate hardware fix for anxiety.
It is, and it goes far beyond just releasing endorphins. Exercise is essentially built-in exposure therapy for your interoceptive nervous system. Think about what happens to your body during a hard workout. Your heart rate skyrockets, you start sweating profusely, your breathing gets heavy and labored, your chest might feel tight, and your muscles shake.
Those are the exact same symptoms as a panic attack.
Yes. But when you experience them on a treadmill or lifting weights, you are teaching your brain a profound biological lesson. You are retraining the predictive algorithm. The brain learns, hey, we are experiencing a racing heart and shortness of breath, but we are not dying. These physical sensations do not always mean danger.
You're expanding your nervous system's window of tolerance. Which brings us to a really cool measurable metric. Heart rate variability, or HRV.
Yes, HRV is key.
We usually think a healthy heart is one that beats like a perfect steady metronome. But a highly adaptable nervous system actually has a lot of variation between beats. It has biological shock absorbers. It can accelerate the heart instantly when you need to run and smoothly apply the brakes the moment you are safe. Exercise directly trains those biological
It
brakes.
gives you that flexibility.
Exactly. So let's pivot to the behavioral side. Because we can fix the sleep, we can balance the blood sugar, and we can train the HRV. The hardware is optimized. But the sources are incredibly clear on this. You can do all of that and still be paralyzed by anxiety if your daily actions keep communicating to your brain that the world is a terrifying place.
Because behavior is the actual language of the nervous system.
Exactly.
Without a doubt, the most toxic behavior for an anxious brain is avoidance. It is a massive seductive trap. Let's walk through a real-world scenario. Imagine you have an overwhelming fear of public speaking, and you have a presentation at work today. The anxiety is building all morning. Finally, you just can't take it anymore, and you call your boss to say you're sick. The very second you hang up that phone, what happens in your body?
You feel this massive rushing wave of relief. All the tension just drops.
Right, and your brain registers that massive relief as a neurochemical reward. It logs the data. It learns, wow, avoiding that conference room just saved our lives. The relief feels like a victory in the short term, but biologically, you just reinforced the fear.
Because you prove to the brain that running away was the right choice.
Exactly. You guaranteed that the next time you have to speak, the smoke detector will blare twice as loud. And the same mechanism applies to reassurance seeking.
Like constantly asking if you're okay.
Yes. Asking a partner or a doctor over and over, am I going to be okay? Is this a heart attack? It's like taking an emotional painkiller. It works for 5 minutes, but you are outsourcing your safety. Your nervous system never learns how to generate its own internal confidence.
Which brings up a fascinating philosophical angle that the notes touch on. When we look at perfectionism through this biological lens, perfectionism isn't about having high standards at all. Perfectionism is just a fear of uncertainty dressed up in a fancy suit.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. Think about two highly trained surgeons walking into an operating room. One surgeon thinks, I am going to rely on my training and do my absolute best today. The other surgeon thinks if I make even one microscopic millimeter mistake, my entire identity and career are completely destroyed. Who is operating with a hijacked nervous system?
The second surgeon. And not because they lack the technical skill, but because their nervous system interprets any level of uncertainty or potential mistake as mortal danger. They're using perfectionism as armor.
And to dismantle that armor, we have to use microexposure. The biggest mistake people make is waiting until they feel confident to do the thing that scares them. But biologically, confidence is stored experience. It is not a prerequisite for action.
So you have to do it scared.
Yes, you have to take action while you are still terrified. Every single day, you must do one small, uncomfortable thing. Hit send on that email without rereading it 10 times. Take the elevator up just one floor instead of the stairs. Sit with an uncomfortable physical sensation for 10 minutes without Googling it. You are intentionally gathering undeniable physical evidence that you can experience uncertainty and survive.
It's a complete recalibration of the predictive algorithm. And I love how the sources synthesize all of this into a highly actionable 4-week biological reset. Let's unpack the mechanics of each week so we can actually apply this. Week 1 is strictly focused on sleep and morning light.
Right. By getting sunlight in your eyes first thing in the morning, you set your circadian rhythm so your cortisol naturally peaks when you wake up, rather than spiking at 10 p.m. and keeping your amygdala on high alert.
Then week 2 focuses on stabilizing the physiology. This is where you introduce protein before caffeine and you delay that coffee for 90 minutes.
Exactly. You are preventing the blood sugar crashes that trick the interoceptive network into triggering those false adrenaline dumps we talked about.
And week 3 is movement. This is the exposure therapy for your internal organs. You intentionally elevate your heart rate and your breathing through exercise, proving to your brain that physical activation is safe and building that heart rate variability.
And finally, week 4 is training uncertainty through those daily micro exposures. You stop avoiding, you delay seeking reassurance, and you teach your brain that you are capable of handling the unknown.
It's a full system reset.
It is. And the crucial takeaway here is that the end goal of this 4-week reset isn't to walk around in a state of perfect Zen-like calm forever. I mean, calm is just an emotion and it is transient.
We aren't trying to numb the system. We are trying to make it flexible.
Think of it like being the captain of a ship on the open ocean. A skilled captain doesn't sit at the dock demanding perfectly placid weather and zero waves every single day. They learn the mechanics of their ship so they can navigate changing conditions.
That makes total sense.
You want a nervous system that can experience a massive spike of anxiety, fully process the wave, and smoothly recover the baseline without letting that false alarm dictate the choices you make in your life.
Recalibration, not suppression. If this episode helped you understand the mechanics of your own mind or, made you realize that you aren't broken, your hardware is just overprotective, please share it with someone in your life who needs to hear it. Understanding the biology is the first step to removing the fear.
But remember, the anxiety loop doesn't break just because you intellectually learn something new today. The algorithm only updates when you physically act differently under the pressure of the moment.
Which brings us right back to those 80% of people sitting in the ER, absolutely convinced their hearts were failing. Their brains were perfectly executing an ancient survival script that simply didn't match their modern reality.
It's all about updating the script.
Exactly. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. If your brain learned to be chronically anxious by constantly gathering evidence of danger, what is one tiny, uncomfortable action you can take today to give your nervous system undeniable physical proof that you are finally safe?